Okay, here we go. So wind energy and conservation. This is not a heavy module, but there is some good information in here. So our learning standards today are describe the benefits and impact of wind energy and explain the methods of conservation of energy. Okay, so wind energy is generated from kinetic energy of moving air. Wind is the fastest growing major source of electricity in the world. So you can see in that graphic at the bottom, it's showing you that from 2001 to 2020, we have installed a lot of wind capacity. That's the gigawatts. Okay, so a gig is 1,000, so 1,000 watts. And so you're talking 800,000 watts is almost the difference between 2001 and 2020, which is pretty impressive. Okay. Countries that have the largest wind capacity. So you don't necessarily have to remember specific details on this for your test, but generally it's a good idea to have an estimate of who has the most energy. And so there's usually like a top three, and usually China, United States, and India are in those top three. Okay, so it's probably a good idea to know electricity. Just tie those to United States, China, and India. Makes sense because we have some of the biggest populations in those countries, right? So you have the most energy. Okay. So while the United States has the highest wind capacity, only 8% of its electricity comes from wind. Okay. Obviously, we know that most of our wind comes from what kind of energy? Or what our electricity comes from what kind of energy? Fossil fuels, right? Okay, that's still not changing. Good. So wind is the fastest growing source of electricity in the United States. If you live in Denmark, 47% of your electricity is from wind, which is pretty cool. Have anybody ever seen a wind farm?
Kansas.
GTA. Right outside Chicago.
GTA.
All right, good. Yeah, GTA. Glad we made that. Okay. Yeah, good. So it's literally just a field with a bunch of bees in it, right? Let's see. Don't I have any notes on that? I don't think so. Nope. Okay. So wind turbines. So we skip a step here. We don't have to heat up water. Hooray! Okay. So the wind is actually just the one turning the turbine, the generator, the same way that hydroelectric would. So we just avoid water and heating it up all together, and that's what generates our energy. Wind turbines tower 100 meters, or for us who use English, it's 330 feet. The blades are between 40 to 75 millimeters. Again, for us that don't use metric, it's 130 to 250 feet long. Okay, when you see them in the air, they don't look very big, but I bet you've probably ridden past a flatbed semi that has one of those things on it. And it's like one of the long ones, and it still kind of hangs off. Like those things are massive. Okay, yeah. So again, the wind turns the blade turns the gearbox, which then turns the generator, and then that goes out to our electrical system and provides electricity. Pretty simple system, all things considered. Okay, wind turbines are installed in rural areas near electrical transmission lines. Wind farms are increasing in number globally, but also can be built in offshore areas near water. Okay, as always, here's our table of advantages and disadvantages. So advantages, it's not depletable. Hooray, we can never run out of wind. Good, there's no pollutants from the electricity generation. Yay, no fossil fuels being burned, nothing in the atmosphere. Very unlikely that you'll have some sort of accident, nuclear explosions, things like that. Once manufactured and installed, it has low to no cost. Okay, maintenance is probably very little. And land can be shared with other uses, so you can run cattle around those things, right? You could potentially put a factory around there, power a factory with a couple of them. Okay, so a lot of advantages, but with every one, there's nothing perfect, so we do have some disadvantages. Okay, batteries are needed if the turbine is off the grid, so batteries aren't necessarily a bad thing, but batteries require minerals that we need to mine, which destroys the earth in other ways, right?
Right.
Okay. During the Donald Trump administration, there was a big push to get some of these turbines turned off because people cared about the bats and the birds being killed with collisions of turbines. Look Looking at that study, I don't know how factual it was. It seemed very politically motivated. Just my opinion. Okay. Visually, they are objectionable, so people don't like the way they look. I think it doesn't matter if you're getting free electricity. And then sounds of the turbines can be bothersome. Yes, Janae. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't think the fact, like, bats do fly pretty high, but they're going to stay closer to where the insects are that they're going to eat. They don't. I mean, bats will migrate pretty far, but they would adjust. Like, bats are really smart, so I don't think that study was super reliable.
Bro, chill.
Actual batteries.
That's good.
The hydrogen fuel cells.
It's back.
That's a good question. Okay, so as you can see, wind farms have a lot of advantages, but also they do have some disadvantages. Some of them are not necessarily affecting the environment; they're just personal. Like they don't look very nice. But again, free energy is free energy, right? Hey, that's his dogs. That's his problem. Okay. So now we're already on our second standard today. So explain the methods of conservation of energy. So many devices in your house currently have what's called as a phantom load. All right, shut up. Okay, that means electronic demand or electrical demand that draws electrical current when it is turned off. So example, PlayStations and other gaming systems are notorious for this. Okay, they keep the energy on so they can update while you're not there. That we don't have to wait on it to update. Okay, so that's nice for you, but it wastes a lot of electricity. Especially like when you're like Mr. Levin, who like never plays his PlayStation and it has to update when I log in anyways because it's logged me out. It's been so long that I've been on it. Yes.
So say you're using your whatever your PlayStation or your laptop, and it's plugged in.
Yeah.
And it's plugged into the wall, and it's using by playing it more. Does it take more electricity usage? I guess from your.
So while you're using it, it probably has more electricity pool than while you're not using it. I would say
So
it's
I was
probably.
just curious.
No, yeah,
What
that
makes
makes
sense
sense.
to your bills and like electricity increases in something versus others.
Yeah, because your computer or your PlayStation is gonna have to work harder to do the things you want it to do than when it's just sitting there. Right.
Because you don't play while you're.
Oh, like your laptop? Yeah, it's better battery.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Doc.
Yeah. But positive news on that is our technology is becoming a lot smarter. So back when I was first starting out as a young adult, I had a job as somebody who worked at a cell phone store. And at that time, you could take the batteries out of smartphones. You know what our batteries looked like? They swole. Yeah, they were square and they were swollen all the time because people would just leave them on the charger and our phones didn't have the technology to regulate the energy input. Imagine now if your iPhone could not regulate the energy input, it would explode. Right, overheats is still not your battery exploding. So your phone is now, usually it'll be programmed to when you're charging it, like you put it on the charger every night, it'll get used to that schedule and it'll make sure it's charged by the time you wake up using the least amount of energy it can. So, yay, technology. Good. Governments can increase taxes on electricity, oil, and natural gas to discourage use of energy. Okay. So what happens right now in Colombia is we have peak charge time, and so that means from the hours of 4:30 to 8:30, the rate of the energy usage increases because they're trying to either make more money to build better infrastructure, or they're wanting to discourage us to use all of our electricity between the peak hours when everyone is home. Okay, it's kind of the same concept behind a water tower. You know what a water tower does?
Yes. Supply water.
It holds water, right? And so why does it hold water? Doesn't it just come from our water treatment plant? Why do we need to hold water?
Because water's not being used all the time, or what?
Okay, water may not be used all the time. What'd you say? Okay, in case the treatment plant goes down, not quite. Okay, what is everybody doing from approximately 5 to 8 o'clock in the morning? Getting ready, right? You think that the water, taking showers. So our water treatment plant probably isn't going to be able to keep up with that. So our water tower literally holds water for peak time. Nope, they got water in them. And so they store water for peak time. That way you don't run out of water. Okay? Yeah, Yeah, right. Okay. Another thing that our government does pretty regularly is they give you tax credits or rebates for energy appliances or automobiles like hybrid electric cars, plug-in hybrids, and battery electric vehicles. So if you buy a brand new Tesla from the dealership, you can apply for a tax credit that they will give you, and so that covers part of the cost of your Tesla. So that's kind of interesting. When I owned a house, I thought eventually my air conditioner quit working, and it was going to be like $10,000. So I bought a high efficiency furnace and air conditioner, and the rebates on it ended up dropping it to be like $2,000.
That's too much.
So
Get a fan.
yeah, so it was pretty nice. Okay. Ways to conserve energy. Okay, you guys probably not unfamiliar with this, but you could insulate your house to lose less energy. You could turn down the thermostat in the winter. Reduce your hot water. Do laundry in cold water. You guys see these commercials, right? We're tired of saying using cold water. It's actually the same. Plant landscaping that shades the house in the summer. So if you have a tree in the front of your house, it's probably there for a reason, not just for aesthetics. Transportation, walk, ride a bike, use telephone transportation, carpool. Try not to leave and come back from your house all the time. So if you are heading out, get all your stuff done at one time. Choose a vehicle with higher fuel economy, which I feel like we do anyways. Hybrid, battery, electric. Okay. Electrical devices, buy Energy Star or energy efficient appliances. Reduce phantom loads, or use a power strip. Use a laptop rather than a desktop computer. Okay. So all those things, like for most of you, unless you're doing it a lot of like heavy gaming or editing and that kind of stuff, probably can get away with using your Chromebook over using like a desktop computer, right? Okay. Good. So this is what we talk about. Demand for energy varies by time of day, season, or weather. So what we've already talked about, like if you live in Texas, you're probably using more energy in the summertime to cool your house down than you would in a place like Minnesota. They probably don't even have air conditioning. Or Colorado. When I went to Colorado this winter, they didn't have air conditioning in the house. It was just open the windows because it's cool enough. Okay? To avoid brownouts or blackouts, electricity providers have been able to provide electricity through peak demand. So again, there's just like a storage, and as we use a lot during those peak hours, you might get charged more, like I was just talking about, because they have more to give, and they have to refuel it just like a water tower. I was gonna say something else about that, but I don't know what it is. Okay, do you guys remember 2 years ago when there was like the ice storms were happening and Texas had they had the worst winter they've had in forever. Ted Cruz went on vacation and they had like rolling blackouts because they couldn't simply keep up with the energy demand.
Yep.
Okay, this is what it's talking about with a brownout or a blackout. So if they can't supply enough electricity or the grid can't handle it, they're going to turn your stuff off for like an hour to try to build some electricity back up, and then different parts of town will do that. In Jeff City, they're not I don't know if it's happened, but it's not incapable of happening here if you were using too much electricity. I don't see it happening, but it could, especially during harsh weather conditions. So when people are running a lot of heating because we've iced over or something like that, or in the summertime we're using a lot of air conditioning, they will do brownouts. Okay. So modern change in efficiency for household appliances and green building design can help conserve energy. So obviously, usually you try to buy the most efficient thing on the market, especially if we're talking about like water heaters. Like you want one that uses the least amount of electricity, or air conditioners, or cars, whatever. Passive solar design allows for construction of homes and buildings to take advantage of solar radiation without active technology. We'll look at a picture of that in a minute, which I didn't realize that until I came across it in this class, which is actually really neat. And then heating costs can be reduced by increasing thermal mass, so homes can stay hotter longer once they have been heated. So this is an example of conservation of energy. So for what I was saying about the trees being planted in the front yard. Okay, so what will happen for developments is they will track the sun at certain times of year and kind of tell you where it's at. Okay, and then if you're buying a house that's like decently priced, kind of expensive probably, they've already planned out, okay, this tree should be this tall to block it at this parts of the year, so that way you're not getting a high electricity bill, right? If you talk to an arborist, they're probably going to tell you how to plant it right there because it's going to save you the most money, right? Your insulation. Has anybody ever been up in their attic?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hot up there, right? Yeah, so it's hot up there for a reason. It's trying to catch all the heat that's dissipating, and it creates a wall. Okay, modern houses will all have like insulation up here and that kind of stuff. And then a lot of houses too will have insulated foundation walls in your basement. Probably not in Jeff City, but newer houses will. And so that's trying to keep all of the heat in. So it probably costs extra to build it that way, but over the life of the house, it's going to save you a lot of money because you're not losing a lot of heat to the ground, right? Because that is going to zap it. And the same thing with the air. Okay, skylights are cool, and they're also really good at heating your house in the wintertime because you're not going to have this tree to block the sun. And so the sun rays are going to come in, and it's going to work like a greenhouse and be trapped in there. Pretty neat. The other thing that I thought was really cool was this, because I did not put this together. So they built this overhang, so that way in the summertime, the sun is not traveling through the window, and so you're not getting heat through your window, heating up the inside of your house. But in the wintertime, we know that the earth is tilted, right? So the sun is not going across the same path that it normally would. And so they planned it to where in the wintertime, it would actually go through the window and heat up the living room. That's cool to me. If I could buy a house like brand new, I would make sure that that was it. That's cool. Questions about that? Pretty neat. Okay. Good. So here's kind of a wrap up. Renewable energy is more sustainable, but obviously all renewable energy has some sort of drawback to it, or else why would we not just switch to it? Each form of energy has advantages, but also disadvantages. There's a big table in your textbook, 41.2. Experts suggest indicate creating new renewable energy, expanding the current will require innovations of our electrical grid as well. And a smart grid would create an efficient, self-regulating electricity distribution network that accepts any source of electricity and distributes it automatically to the end user, the consumer, which is you. So what they're saying is, eventually what should happen is going from our regular grids now, which all have the turbine that generates electricity and sends it out to the grid, right? But we all have different water or heating the sources of the water, right? So we have like the nuclear, which heats the water, which turns the turbine, the steam turns the turbine, right? We have fossil fuels, which heats the water, turns the steam, turns the turbine. So what they're saying is it doesn't matter what electricity we're using, it should be plug and play. We should get to a smart grid system. So if, let's say, we have a nuclear, a solar, and a wind all at the same time hooked up to the same grid, then we could be able to turn off the nuclear whenever we need repairs. Or if it's cloudy, we're not relying on the solar. Or if it's not windy, we're not relying on the wind farm, right? To be able to plug and play. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. And yeah. This is just a neat picture. Okay, it's all the things you could do. You get smart appliances that regulate a lot better as opposed to like fridges from the 1970s that just run and run and run and run, right? You can get a plug-in electric car, but that's really only helping the environment if you have renewable energy sources is how you fuel your house, right? Smart meter, so like the Nest. Anybody have the Google Nest in their house or Amazon Nest or whatever it is, where like you can program your thermostat throughout the day, so when you're not home, you're not using as much electricity. Just my parents. Okay, cool. My parents have this thermostat that they program, and during the day, well, they work from home now, so not really, it doesn't matter. But at night, when they're sleeping, the house automatically is going to get cooler, and they're going to be under covers, so they don't really care about the house being warm, so they let the thermostat go down. And then during the day, whenever they like wake, right an hour before they wake up, they tell it to start like heating the house up. That way, when it's warm, whenever they wake up. And whenever they worked a regular job during the day, they would switch it to where it would turn off, and then like an hour before they got home. So their house is still comfortable, right? This is what that lady was talking about in the TED Talk. Things are still usable. Things are still what the consumer wants. We're still finding innovations to save energy and that kind of stuff, right? Just like buying an electric car versus a hybrid, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So that's where our devices and our electricity are going to have to be. They still have to be usable, like my iPhone. Okay, my iPhone can regulate its charging capacity. It costs me a little bit more money, but it's going to be more energy efficient, and I like to use it. Right? Same thing with everything else. I'm good? All right. Questions, comments, concerns? Let me have a good joke. Oh, okay. There.